Hi guys, welcome back to Point Blank Dev. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to create a user registration system. Many times you have been visiting several websites and then they've asked you to create an account with them before you could access any of their packages. So this tutorial is going to give you a sound understanding about how these technologies work. Without wasting much time, let us see how we can do that in our text editor. So I'm just going to start Apache here, start MySQL, go to Explorer, and then to htdocs I'm going to create a new project, a new folder. Let's call this registration. Registration. Oh my god, caps is on registration. Now I'm going to right click on my folder or my project and then open it in my favorite text editor, Visual Studio Code. Let's wait for it to open. Now we have something on our screen. Now we have Visual Studio Code opened here. I'm going to close this. I don't need to close this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically create 4 files, or 5 rather. I'm going to create one called the index.php. I'll still create another called node.js. I'm going to create another called server.php. I'm going to call another style.css. So I'll call another register. No, for now let's index.php. I'm going to create my HTML markup. Now I'll say let's say here home page, something like that. Let's say home page. Now I'm going to create my HTML markup here. If I go to my browser, and I type localhost/registration. Let's see what we're going to have. Now you see this home page here. This is the title of the page. Look at it here. This is the home page. If I change it to anything, let me say Casper, and I come back here and I refresh, you can see. Let's call this let's just leave it to be home page. Let's just leave it to be home page. Back here. So I'm going to create my HTML markup to create our login, our registration form. I'm just going to call it register form. I'm always calling it from register form. Inside I'm going to create a header and to say h2, and I'm going to say create account. I'm going to draw a rule, a horizontal rule. Now, no, not here. I'm going to cut it and paste it here. Now I'm going to create a form. A form with a method of post. A form with a method of post, because we are trying to post something to our server, to our database. We're trying to send in information to our server, so we're using it post. We're going to do a post request. So inside I'm going to create div element with the class of form group, and inside we are going to have label. I'm going to remove this for attribute, label for username, and then input with the type of text, and I'm going to give it a class of form control. I'm always calling it form, not from. Form control. I'm going to give it a placeholder. Now before I give it a placeholder, I want us to come back to our browser and see what we have there. If I refresh, you can see this. We have something like this. You can feel, but that's not what I want. Now you don't actually see anything here, but just watch. If I add the placeholder attribute, place, what's wrong with me? Placeholder, I'm going to call it, I'm going to say choose a username. If I save, come back, refresh, now you can see choose a username. Now if I type, it disappears. Now the placeholder is just like a signpost trying to tell you that this is what this particular stuff is meant for. So it's just trying to tell you that this is where you're going to choose a username. So you're filling it like that. So back to our text editor. I forgot to add something here. I'm going to give it a name. Now the name, oh my god, what's this? The name is what I'm going to use in our PHP to target it, so that I'm going to do some little stuff with it. I'm going to call this username. You can give it any name you want, but for this tutorial I'm going to call it our username. Now I'm going to copy this, paste it, paste. Now username, email, input the type of email. The name is going to be email. Placeholder is going to read someone at mail.com. Now this is going to be password. The type is going to be password. The name is also going to be password. And then the placeholder, choose a password. Choose a password. I'm trying to tell him to choose a password. Come on, get out of here. Choose a password. I'm going to say confirm password. Input to the type of password. The name is going to be confirm_password. Now I'm going to say confirm your password. Confirm your password. There is something I wish to add to all of them. A HTML5 attribute that would simply just verify or validate the form. It's going to check if this form is not filled out, it's not going to submit. If you leave all the input fields empty, if I refresh, now you see something like this. Choose a username, someone at mail.com, choose a password, confirm your password. Now if you do not fill this, you just leave them empty and then you try to submit the form by hitting create account or clicking create account. This form is not going to submit, simply because we are going to add required. Okay, you don't need to add a / here, simply because we add a required. That is what this required is going to do. So now I want the user to click on a button. Let's create a button here that the user will simply click on create account. Or if the user has created an account already, let's just tell him, or ask him rather, have you created an account or already have an account? Log in here. Let's do that. Let's call this .cta call to action, and then I'm going to say button with a type of submit, and I'm going to say create account. The reason why it is having a type of submit is because we want that anytime this button is clicked, this form here is actually going to be submitted. And where is it going to be submitted? To our database. In this tutorial, we are just going to focus on creating the HTML markup for our registration form. in further tutorials we are going to see how we can create some PHP, some SQL, some backend stuff that will help us retrieve or get this information whenever the form is submitted. So let's add another class here. Let's add a class here. I want to call it btn, oh my god, btn primary. Let's save, come back to our browser, refresh. Now you can see a default button here. So whenever it's clicked, you see, please fill out this field. It's because it's empty and it's working because of this required here. Now you can see, if I say create account, please fill out this form. If I say, you can see it is because of this required here. So now let's ask the user if he has already created an account. Already have an account. If yes, then we're going to tell you to go to the login page and log in. But in this situation, we are only going to have a register page for now, so we are going nowhere. I'll leave this href empty, and then I just say what am I saying, login here. So if I come back, refresh, you can see already have an account, login here. So if I click login, we are going nowhere because I haven't specified the path to where we are going. And if I just say login.php, now we are going to receive an error. You see, object not found. Our server cannot find the login page or the login.php file. Okay, but if I decide to create the login here, the login.php here, if I decide to create the login.php here and I come back, oh my god, what's that? If I refresh and I say login, now we are in the login.php file. But this is not the purpose of this tutorial. This tutorial is basically, let's delete this. This is not the purpose of this tutorial. Move to recycle bin. The purpose of this tutorial is to basically teach you how to create your HTML markup for registration form. So in the next tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to create some style sheets info or some style sheet data that will help us append some styles to this HTML form, because as you can see, it's looking so ugly. It's not good at all. It's not looking professional. In the next class, I'll teach you how to write your CSS styles that will make it beautiful. So, but there's also one thing I would love to explain before we round up the class. Now you can see the index.php file happens to be the file where our registration form is. But that's not what we want, because whenever your website gets loaded, the first page or the first file the browser will actually look for is the index.php file. So by default, the index.php file are always the home page. So if I decide to change the name, rename it, I'm going to call it register.php, and then create an empty index here .php. If I come back to my browser and refresh, now it is taken on to the empty index.php. Like I said, the first file the browser will always look for whenever your web page or website gets loaded on the browser is that it's going to go to your file directory and look for the index.php file. So that's it for this tutorial, and then see you in the next class.